Hello, welcome, nice to be here. I trust you're all doing well and happy and excited. So it's nice to see there are a lot of new names that I haven't seen before, so welcome. There's a lot of very interesting things that are going on in the world, and a lot of interesting things going on in and around you. In the process of that, one of the things that we get lots of conversation about, or not so much conversation, lots of why am I depressed? Or why am I having anxiety? Or why am I feeling off balance? And that question extends. It's like, but there's nothing wrong in my life. Everything's okay. But what is this feeling that I cannot assign a cause to? There's nothing wrong with my relationship. My job's okay. I'm depressed, or I'm uncertain, or what's wrong with me? Anybody know that place? And it's not an all the time, what's wrong with me? It's just like, what is this feeling or this sense of something that is going on with me? It's an interesting question because there's a lot going on with you, and there's a lot of energetics that are affecting you that have nothing to do with you, but yet they're in your space, or they are an emotion or a feeling that creates a sense of off-balanceness or interruption. I want to talk about it from the standpoint of what's going on, and I'm going to do it in a simple way, and I'm going to speak to it in relationship to, for many of you in Mastering Alchemy, really about level 1 and level 2 tools. How do I manage myself? How do I observe and choose an action rather than being the effect of all the energy around me? We're in a huge transition at lots of levels, and everything happens in cycles. You get positive economies, and you get recessions in economies, and then you go back, and so they're all waves of action that occur in lots of different experiences. Everything is in waves. And right now there are 7 or 8 major waves that are moving through the world, and they are different levels. They're at economies, they're at demographies, meaning age groups. They're in cycles. There's a huge cycle of 80 years that seems to be very consistent moving through time. Everything changes on a structural level about every 80 years. There's another cycle about every 3 generations, roughly every 60 years. Something changes. One of these shifts is an enormous shift, and it's a shift around shifting out of a construct of the world that allows, or that's built in such a way that vibrations or experiences, emotions, domination, greed, imposition, abuse, I'm better than you, that whole cycle has been going on for a long time, and it's done. It's ending. And ending doesn't mean it just stops. It's moving from one aspect of that level of imposition and I'm better than you, good and bad, right and wrong, should and shouldn't, dualities, to something that's going to be a lot more comfortable, something that doesn't have all those dualities, doesn't have that competition, that advantage that one is better than the other. So these changes, as they occur, they are very disruptive. My status quo is being disrupted. And that's what you're seeing all over the world. You're seeing it in terms of wars. You're seeing it in terms of economies. You're seeing it in terms of people saying, I want change in what's happening in my life. You're watching it happen in food distribution. You're watching it in climate changes. You're watching it around you in lots of ways. But predominantly, it's about you. you're in a tremendous change. And so this vibration or these feelings of things like depression or anxiety or I'm off balance. Now that's not happening to everybody at the same level. There's a lot of people that are just moving right through a lot of this comfortably. But for the most part, the average person, whatever that is in a state of disruption. Much of the disruption is around status quo. What used to be isn't anymore. And people say, are we going to get back to 2019 and before? The answer is no, we're not going to get back to, well, that was what I liked, or that was where I was comfortable. Well, that's where you were in status quo, but comfortable may not have been what a person was. Did you like working 2 jobs and not seeing your kids? Did you find that how you were navigating the world was really on your terms versus on what I'm supposed to do or what I have to do? So coronavirus came and was massively disruptive in many, many ways. So many people lost their lives. Much of the disruption in how the world worked doesn't work that way anymore. And it's not going back to working that way anymore. So how does that affect me? How does that affect what I do? How do I navigate around all of these different things? So one of the aspects of this is I'm off balance. And when people ask the question, well, something's wrong, they'll start with something's wrong. It's not right or wrong, it's just a change. It's just something that's happening differently. Let's see if we can put this change into a perspective and then ask the question, well, what do I do with this? How do I navigate? How do I shift out of this feeling, fill in the blank, depression, anxiety, uncertainty, off-balanceness? It's really kind of off balance, and it goes all the way over to an anxiety, somewhere in the middle, many people are. So what is all this? Well, one of the things that we've been talking about for quite some time is this transition that's in place or happening now that's moving from what was to what will be. And in the average person's reality, this makes no sense because they're very focused on right now and how do I do what I used to do, or how do I do something new? But this, on a large level, this transition is very spiritual. Moving from a place of greed, domination, imposition to a state of well-being. But a lot of people are arguing for their limitations and arguing for their status quo. And so it begins to be uncomfortable. It's as if the water is rising, but I don't want it to rise. Well, it's rising. It's happening. It's going to create some disruption. But the disruption doesn't have to be uncomfortable. It doesn't have to be a problem. So this disruption that's occurred, and just let's use coronavirus from the standpoint of disruption, it has interfered with that status quo. And it's caused a lot of people, millions of people and more, to have to step back and adjust to something new. On an energy level, on a spiritual level, this process of beginning to recognize something new is available outside of depression or outside of anxiety. It's really difficult to be in what's wrong and recognize new opportunities or what's new. So what is all this, and where is it coming from, and how does it impact you? One of the things that's happening is the rational mind is trying to make sense. The thinking mind is trying to make sense and answer the question, what's wrong? However that question is being asked. Why am I off balance? Why isn't this working? And it doesn't have the grasp to really have the awareness of what's going on from how it has been in its status quo state. So for example, one of the things that's happening that is challenging or unknown is in the physical experience that we walk around with, form, house, chair, drive your car, physical body, there's a lot of energy that's being released that is simply not yours. So growing up, the mom, dad, teacher, minister simply say, this is how it works, do this, don't do that. And we pretty much accept a lot of that growing up. And you build your life around that. Even though it might not be comfortable, it might not be what you wanted to do, you begin to do what you've learned how or been told to do, and you grow up in that space. But that space may or not be your space. It may or may not be your idea to be where you are. And a lot of times, if you think about it, there's a space, there's an aspect of you that says, what if I had done this, or could I do that? And there's no permission or no sense of permission to do what you would like to do. Now, I'm being really general. One of the things that we agree to in the growing up space is other people's opinions. And one of those things that we believe quite often is, I need someone else's permission to be okay, to do this job, to walk out of the house, to go drive the car at 16, 17 years old. I need somebody's permission. A good part of this transition that's unfolding is new awarenesses about who you are. And one of those awarenesses is permission is yours. Permission is not something that's given to you. Permission is something that you have. But we have a tendency to give up that to the mom, dad, teacher, minister. We give up our sense of our own permission to go create our lives. Well, we're little, we don't know, and so we're following that evolution of growing up. But permission, at this point of the game, is something to begin to recognize that is mine. I have permission to make change. I have permission to shift. In that space of beginning to recognize I have permission, the ability to step in a different direction begins to be made much more clear. And when I recognize I can choose my own reality, I can make decisions, I have permission, the ability to begin to shift into what is very flowing. These changes are very opportunistic. They're very much in flow. There's enormous possibilities. However, when I don't have permission, or when I have to do what mom, dad, teacher, minister have said I have to do, finding that place of fluidness and flexibility and permission sometimes is a challenging place. Now, everybody take a breath, because we've already started creating a shift in this space where we're playing here today. How do I go about beginning to recognize more who I am and what I would like to do? Not that I'm even uncomfortable, but what I have possibilities to do. How do I begin to put this in place? Because I have this sense of off-balanceness. One of the aspects of who you are, there is the physical form, and then there is that rational mind, that ability to think, process information. And in that rational mind, in that thinking process, you create thought forms. A thought form is a thought and an emotion combined together. And so in this space of thought forms, you create a lot of opinions, a lot of judgments, a lot of beliefs. Those beliefs quite often get reinforced, and then they become habits, and then habits become unconscious. They just simply become routine. And I have lots of routine habits. This is how I live, this is how I eat, this is how I do this is how I do that. Habits. What is happening is there's a tremendous change in motion. And so we get locked into habits, and then when the water rises, or when you begin to have a shift in how I have done something, is not how I have the opportunity to do it again, or how I must do it, because things are changing. It's an interesting place, because that level of thought, a lot of times we have judgments, we have anger, we have resistance. People in third dimension, people in the walking around world, have lots of opinions, beliefs, habits, judgments, responses. And quite often those are just, they get into a reactionary state. Why did he say that? That was a stupid thing she did. On and on. And we begin to have opinions. And those opinions begin to shape personalities. And those collective opinions begin to layer in that personality, and this is who I am. But to a great extent, it's not who you are at all. And we have collected lots of different configurations of energy, of thought, that allow us to navigate the world. But here's one of the things that is not quite known about what's going on and why am I depressed, off balance, or have some level of anxiety. On the larger level of these cycles, there is a construct, we're going to call it the fourth dimension. Third dimension, walking around space every day. Fourth dimension is a non-physical space. It's a dimension. It's non-physical. It is a thought realm. All the thoughts ever thought are held in this dimension. You ever ask yourself, where did the thought go that I just got done thinking? It doesn't go poof into the air and go away. It goes somewhere. It's a thought form. It has an emotion, it has a feeling, it has a thought, it has an electromagnetic field, and many times you carry it around in your own space, unconsciously. Just like many of the beliefs. I turned them into habits. This is how I do my life. Unconscious. In this fourth dimensional space, this thought realm, all the thoughts ever thought on the planet are stored. And in that thought realm, it is also, or could be considered, the emotional body of the earth. The earth is in change too. It's in a huge change. We call it climate change, but a lot of other things. The earth is in a change, and this one of the primary aspects of the change is clearing out the emotional body of the earth. Now it's also interesting because that emotional body of the earth is a place where when we go to sleep at night, we call it dreams, we pass through that fourth dimensional realm of thought. And it's interesting, if you go to sleep in a really angry, frustrated, moody space, often you have an uncomfortable sleep, or you might have bad dreams. The mechanics of this fourth dimensional space in regard to your dream space is every night you as a spiritual being go home. You go home. You go back to God, Allah, whatever you call that creator being that created everything. You go home. You go back to being the soul. You engage from the higher self. You leave the body, pass through that astral plane, and go home. But in that astral plane, all the thoughts that ever been thought are changing. The earth is changing it. The sun is changing it. And it is changing you. You are being changed. So in that thought realm, all of those thoughts that have ever been thought, they create strings. So if you have a set of judgments, opinions about somebody, and then you walk away from them, those thoughts connect to other thoughts of others that have thought the same kind of judgments. And it creates an enormous web, if you would. In this shift that we're playing in right now, a lot of that web is also tied to your emotions, your thoughts, how you have thought and created the personality that you are. And so we often say, in the backpack, in the place behind me where I don't like experiences that I've had, I've been yelled at, I've been punished, I've been guilty, I've been blamed for, and I don't like those feelings. And so I go into a space where I deny them. I say, I can't handle this anymore. And I want to get rid of this. So I we'll call it, put it in the backpack behind you and try to forget it. And I kind of make a deal with this energy. I say, look, if you don't come out and bite me in the butt again, I will do everything possible not to go over where that embarrassment, that blame, that guilt was created. I'll start to avoid circumstances that are uncomfortable. And so you take that and you put it in the backpack. And you forget about it. Or at least you don't go over where you might get it activated again. And in that process, it didn't go away. You're still carrying it around. It's still very active in your space, but I start to structure my personality in such a way that I avoid, I hide from, I kind of resist, I avoid. Now just think about that for a minute. Are there things that you avoid? Are there people that you avoid? Or maybe you make a judgment about somebody. I don't like that person. I'm not going to talk to them ever again. And so we begin to create these lines in our personality, in our emotional body, that says, I'm creating a structure, status quo, and this is how I'm going to live my life. I don't consciously say I'm going to live my life that way, but it begins to be the result of all of the things that I avoid. All of the emotions, all of the potential judgments, all of the energetics that I didn't like growing up. The interesting part is all those energetics are thoughts, and they have an electromagnetic field of an emotion tied to them. So right now, one of the things that's happening is that emotional body of the earth is in the process of being dissipated. It's in the process of being dissolved. It's in the process of being cleaned out. Because the history of the planet is a history of wars and opinions and judgments and power over and good and bad and right and wrong and should and shouldn't. The dualities, all of those thoughts are stored in and around the earth's, in the emotional body. Just like your emotional body, just like the backpack where I have a whole lot of things. I don't like them, so I'm not going to pay attention to them. But they didn't go away. And they're also very tied to all the thoughts ever thought that are in the emotional body. Interesting. And so how do I get rid of that? Or how do I begin to become more aware of that? Because right now, a lot of the feeling of I'm depressed, I have anxiety, has very little to do with you at all, but it's in your reality. And a great part of it first is the energy of other people. Because as the status quo begins to be disruptive, everybody begins to be disrupted. And there begins to be a common agreement. There's something wrong going on right now. All you have to do is watch CNN or Fox News. They'll be happy to tell you something's wrong. But there's a feeling something's not right. Now, again, take a breath, because where we're going right here is, would you like to clear some of this out of your space? It's really pretty simple, but it starts with having an awareness of what it is. So right now, as this shift, the status quo is changing on this really larger spiritual level, you can't take your baggage with you on this journey. You just can't take the blame, the guilt, the embarrassment that we hold on to, that we really hold on to it. We simply actually argue for it, because I don't want anybody ever to see that I'm not okay. In fact, I don't want to see that I'm not okay, so I'm going to really bury this in my unconsciousness. Now, you probably haven't done that, but you may know somebody who's done that. So another breath. So how do I get rid of that? How do I shift that? How do I begin to recognize that? We talked in the last month's session, we talked about time. And one of the things that we said is time passes through you. You don't pass through time. And so in this space, a lot of change is occurring, and you can't take your baggage with you on this journey. So in order to go on the journey without the baggage, you really have a lot of help. Kind of comes out of left field, as they say. I don't understand it. In fact, I'm not even sure I'm liking what is happening. I'm depressed. I'm uncomfortable. I have an anxiety. What's really going on is it's leaving. You can't take your baggage with you on this journey. So as this spiritual shift happens, and we've talked about this over the last year, these huge waves of light that are coming in that are both very disruptive and very opportunistic. And the disruptive part, not destruction, disruption. It's just shaking you, loosening things up, pulling them out of the backpack, in a manner of speaking. They're bringing them to the surface, not to be mean or punishing or creating a problem for anybody. It's an opportunity, the disruption. It's simply saying, hey, let me shake this up for you a little bit so you have permission to clear out what's not yours. Now, clear out, that's something that level 1 and level 2 do. How do I get rid of this sense of something's not right? Or this awareness that something's out of balance. And I don't like being out of balance. I would like to be more understanding of what's going on. I would like to be able to adjust to it, clear out what's not mine, because most of it's not yours at all. How do I get this? And where is this disruption coming from? So it's very interesting, if you've noticed or have heard in the last really 2-3 months, we've gone into what's called a new solar cycle. Cycle 25. Happens about every 11 years. You get a wave, and you get sunspots and electromagnetic mass ejections, and you get all kinds of things going on. At the end of that 11-year cycle, it'll either slow down or it'll speed up. It's just started to speed up. You're having significant amount of mass ejection, solar flares, solar disruption, solar winds, disproportionate to any of the other 11-year cycles on record. It's very large Excalibur waves of light being emitted from the sun. What's happening is the sun, in relationship to the earth, is simply loosening up the limitations, the restrictions, the really tight fourth dimensional thought realm. It's loosening it up. It's clearing it out. It's starting to release it. But as it releases it from this fourth dimensional thought realm, emotional field of the earth, it's doing it in your space also. And so there's lots of energy that's beginning to leave your space. The good news is most of it you're not even aware of. Most of the limitations you've held, most of the thoughts you had in 3rd grade, most of the arguments with, they were really never about you anyway, but you held on to them. They're leaving. But there's other stuff that you argue for. In fact, in that backpack, you've got probably a number of things that you really hope nobody ever knows about you. In fact, you've even forgotten them because you've buried them so deep in your space. Oh, I see some of you haven't forgotten them at all. All that's coming out. It's all leaving. Now you can look at it from the, oh no, what's going to happen to me when that's 1 thing, 2 things, those 5 things, those 100 things that I've stuffed back there start coming out. I'm going to be really uncomfortable. Well, yeah, that's a choice. But if you begin to recognize that most of that energy, most of those emotions, most of those experiences that you hold yourself hostage for are not even yours. They're not yours. No matter how you argue for the limitation, I'll pretty much guarantee you, if you and I walked around that one item that you said, oh no, I was really bad, by the time we walk around it, you will see it did not happen the way you think it happened. But more interestingly is this thing about time. Now, if you recall from last month, we talked about time in the 3rd dimension is linear. Past, present, future, you die. But interestingly, in the 4th dimension, in the 5th dimension, time is only in present time, right now. And interestingly about time is a lot of what we hold in the past is made up of two things. So let me give you an example. My husband, wife died 20 years ago, and I'm really sad, the person says. Well, what's really they're saying is there's an event, my husband, wife died, and there's an emotion, I'm sad. But when you start to recognize, this is level 1 and 2, for those who haven't played there, this you begin to recognize that emotions only occur in the present time. Now, the sad happened in a present time past moment. My husband, wife died. But right now, when you begin to get into present time, when you begin to identify your energy field, when you begin to function from present time, the ability to look at an event as an event, an only event, and then in present time choose, do you want to be in the emotion of the past event, or would you like to be in present time? My husband and wife died 20 years ago. Doesn't mean I have to be sad or emotional. I can choose to simply be recognizing that was an event. In the process of recognizing that event, you get to ask another question in present time. Does this have any value to me to continue to carry around as something that's sad? And when the answer begins to be no, let's say I lost my dog when I was 12 years old and I'm sad, a better example. When you get into present time and you recognize that you don't have to hold that emotion, is it important that you hold your attention in that energy of being sad around an event that happened in the past? And generally the answer is this doesn't serve me. So now, if you were to recognize that piece of information as an opportunity to clean out the backpack, does this serve me? And then choose to let it go. You have a lot of help because these electromagnetic waves from the sun are what's loosening up the fourth dimension's thought realm. It's loosening up all that really tight, I hate them, they're never going to work, those people are bad. There's a lot of that in the emotional body of the earth. Very rigid, very structured, and so much so that it doesn't allow much permission for letting it go and moving into present time. Present time, a state of well-being. So take another breath. Would you like to simply let go of some of those emotions, some of those pictures, some of those memories that you didn't like, that are stuffed in the backpack that you can't even really call up? But I bet if I said to you, is there one thing that you did that was really bad, terrible, you weren't a nice person, probably in the midst of asking the question, 2, 3 things just came to your attention. Would that be correct? Now see, the good news is by simply being able to be in neutral, in present time, and recognizing that I do not have to engage in the emotion of what I've stuffed in my backpack, I can let go of what's in my backpack. Well, little assembly required, but not much. A little more information, but not much. I can let it go. And if I let go of my guilt or my blame or my judgments or my resentment or my hatredness or my etc., would your life be more comfortable in navigating in present time? Let me help you. Yes, the answer is yes. These magnetic releases in the sun are all about cooperating with the earth, cooperating with you, and loosening up that backpack, loosening up this fourth dimensional thought realm. As it's loosening up, there's a lot of emotion that's being released. Most of the emotion has nothing to do with you at all. In fact, I'd say virtually 99% of the emotion that you have passing through your space has nothing to do with you. One of the emotions that is coming out of the earth right now is war. I'm not talking about Ukraine. I'm talking about the history of war. It is embedded into the physical earth, and it goes back eons and eons and eons of time, way beyond what you would define as history. War. It's embedded into the earth, and it's embedded into the emotional construct, emotional field of the earth. And right now, these electromagnetic solar waves that are coming are all about letting go of that attachment, that energetic of pain, suffering, depression, sadness, resentment, etc. And so why am I depressed? Why am I having anxiety? There's nothing wrong in my reality. You're correct. There's nothing wrong in your reality. But it's almost like watching, the morning dew beginning to just, like steam coming off the grass. The earth is releasing tremendous amount of energy right now in order to move into a different state of consciousness. And so you just happen to be, if there's some level of anxiety, depression, frustration, today's just not a good day for me, you might say. A great part of that has nothing to do with you. It's simply passing out of your field. It's releasing. If you can find the space, many of you playing in Mastering Alchemy, this is exactly what the level 1, level 2 work is. Being able to define a space of balance for yourself. So let's just play here for a minute in terms of taking your attention off of I have a depression, an anxiety, I'm not okay, I don't feel good. What happens is it really is in that thought realm, that rational mind, to be able to shift your attention to a different feeling. It's an intentional decision. It's made in present time. It's a choice. I'm going to choose to shift my attention from feeling X to feeling some level of well-being. So let's just play here for a few minutes, and then I want to give you a lot of room to ask questions, as this has been a working session. Would you take a breath, and would you leave your eyes open? And would you just choose to be present? Right here. You just be right here. A simple way to be right here is, would you be right in the center of your head? Center of your head. So that you can look out through your eyes. For some that'll be new, for most will be, I understand. Center of your head. And from the center of your head, would you just look at the wall over there? But don't go to the wall. Don't go over there to see it. Stay right here and let the wall come to you, in a manner of speaking. Don't go to the wall. And take a breath. Nice. And I'm present. I'm right here. I'm looking at the wall. I'm taking another breath. And I'm going to relax. Just simply relax. Feel the weight of your body on the chair. Have another breath. Nothing to think about. I'm just sitting in a chair, relaxing. And would you shift that concept of I'm in the center of my head looking over there? And would you call this awareness? I'm being aware from the center of my head, and I'm allowing the wall to be over there. Simple. I'm not over there, I'm right here. I'm relaxed, I'm in present time, And I'm quiet. Just find quiet. Now, there's no real thinking going on here. You're just noticing yourself being relaxed. Now, would you bring your attention to the word comfortable? And would you find the feeling of comfortable? Not a thinking, a feeling. And if you need to adjust yourself, adjust yourself. But simply, I'm relaxed, I'm present, I'm quiet, and I'm choosing to be comfortable. Now, allow the vibration of comfortable to be an attention point and a feeling. I'm holding it in my mind, comfortable. I'm aware of comfortable, and I'm feeling comfortable. Allowing myself to be comfortable. Giving myself permission to be comfortable. Now, some of you, your eyes will have just closed. Take another breath and open your eyes. This isn't a trance. This isn't a meditation. That is closing your eyes meditation. This is a present time alignment of energy and thought that allows you to choose how you wish to experience this moment. It's really that simple. How do I wish to experience this moment? You might even dabble in the feeling of happy. Now, don't rush into happy. It's an advanced tool. Happy. Maybe smile. Just simply comfortable, present, happy, relaxed. And would you recognize you just chose these alignments? Now, you might also notice some of you might be arguing with this. That's the rational mind saying, no, I'm depressed. I'm really anxious. No, rational mind. But right here, you are not your rational mind. And you're just simply being requested to notice comfortable as a choice. Now we'll add to it. Let's make comfortable light. In fact, let's use the word buoyancy. Buoyancy. You ever been in the ocean and the wave comes in, it just lifts you up and then just places you back down? Would you have a sense of being just very loose, very light, buoyant? No reason to go unconscious. Your eyes are open and you're just noticing yourself. Now, what you're doing is a choice. It's also a skill. It's I'm choosing to align myself into a vibrational feeling and structure that I choose to experience this moment. That was a big mouthful. A lot was just said right there. So let's do it again. I'm choosing to align myself, comfortable, present, quiet, relaxed, happy. See, that's what we just did. And you not even have to work at it. It's just there it is. And I'm choosing to be in this alignment to experience myself in this minute from this alignment. Now, what's really cool, what's really exciting is I can choose every moment the alignment that most appropriately supports me in what's in front of me in this moment. Now, nothing to think about, just notice. Now, what gets very interesting here is These waves of light I mentioned are very opportunistic. And what's happening in this shifting space is as I hold myself in comfortable, or any choice of words that give you a smile and feel good, and you're very present and aware, something that begins to happen is much of what's in that backpack that has really nothing to do with you at all starts to simply dissipate and go away. Now, it doesn't dissipate and go away when I'm unconsciously depressed or angry or in anxiety or I don't know what's wrong. And I continue to hold my present time moment's attention in this isn't feeling good. I'm not happy. I'm depressed. I have anxiety. What's wrong with me? You see, in those alignments, you're pretty much looking at the past, and you are choosing a lesser vibration to experience in present time. And I mentioned that time passes through you. It gets very interesting here in the simplicity that when I hold well-being intentionally, consciously, in the moment, it's as if I start to walk on a different path. I begin to pull a different timeline into my space. I pull a timeline that is very supportive of where I am. Now, the same truth is there when I'm depressed, not paying attention, unconscious, grumpy, just walking through my day, poor me. You pull a timeline that supports that. So, how do you choose? This game is unfolding very rapidly, and the opportunities are astonishing. From happy, relaxed, comfortable, and on you fill in the words of your own well-being. Present time, I'm looking through my eyes and noticing the sun's out, the grass is green, the trees are bright, it's warm, I'm happy. This question, how do I choose, becomes a very present time opportunity. Notice myself. Where am I? And see, the easy part is when you fall out of it and fall back into grumpy, it's not permanent. It simply is now an awareness. This isn't where I want to be. This is not how I wish to choose to experience this moment that I'm sitting in. Now, another breath. If you can just allow without thinking, you're just relaxed and comfortable, and some guy's talking on the other end of wherever he is. And I like myself. You see, just this begins to let go of years and years of those thoughts. I'm not okay. The thing is, it really is that simple, but it's not that easy. The rational mind says, no, you don't understand. We've had challenges. But in this space of simply being comfortable, aware, quiet, present, the ability to say to the rational mind, I'm just trying something new, you can be quiet, actually has a lot of effect. And the rational mind will begin to align with the new timeline, why in the road that's being presented. So another breath. Is there a smile there? Again, smiles are advanced tools only certain advanced people get to deal with smiles. Not everybody gets to have smiles, so maybe you're one of those. What do you think? How do you choose? Now, would you just wiggle your toes? Move your shoulders? Would you be pleased with yourself? Oh, that's another advanced piece. Pleased with myself. Try it out. Relax. Take another breath or two. Be pleased with yourself. And let's come to a stopping place. Complete. Would you simply consider, I'm complete for the moment. But I have some choices that I have available to me. Wiggle your toes. Stretch your arms. And let me turn this over to Roxanne. I'd be interested in what you just heard and what you just noticed, because quite a bit was just done pretty effortlessly. Any questions you have, I'm more than happy to discuss them. Let me see if Roxanne is available.
I am. Hello, everybody. If you would like to ask a question, just type it there in the control panel and I can ask it for you. Let us know if you're in a Mastering Alchemy program or not, and that will help Jim answer the question a little bit more closely to the tools that you have on your tool bench. So Jim, this first one is from Janice, who has only participated in Project Parkman. And Janice says, I don't get reactive to what's going on in the world, but since the year started, I've been getting very anxious and feeling a lot of fear and sadness. It seems like I'm going backwards. If we are raising our vibrations and consciousness, shouldn't I feel more peace and joy?
Yes, and what you're feeling is exactly right on time, in a manner of speaking. One of the things that happens is all of what we've just been talking about, the noise, the anxiety, it's all leaving. It's all where it has been locked into place. These waves of light are really loosening everything up. And for those of you in Mastering Alchemy, fourth ray is at play here. So it's loosening everything up to be let go. So what happens is when I don't know what's going on and I have just these emotions and old memories and I put my attention on them, I begin to engage with them by putting my attention on them. And then they suck me right into thinking about it over and over again. Total purposes of the level 1 tools is to begin to be able to stay on my side of the rose, begin to allow the world to be on the other side of my rose. That's not me, and be able to recognize that these feelings, emotions that we're talking about, depression, uncomfortableness, are all leaving. So when you can begin to bring yourself into this space we just talked about and hold your attention in well-being, and you have other tools to play with, you begin to recognize, I don't have to think about this or grab a hold of this. I can bring my attention in a walking around space into choosing to feel good. And so you're watching everything leaving. You're not watching what's wrong with me beginning to take hold all over again, in a manner of speaking.
This one is from Elise, who just started level 2. When doing work in this class, I get lots of yawns and also tears. Tears are not explainable. They're just there. Is this a release?
Yes. One of the things that happens as you begin to align yourself with you're letting go of who you are not. And particularly when you start sitting in some of these level 1 meditation spaces, or just what we just described, and begin to really say to yourself, the you that you are you, I'm ready to make some changes, you start to let go of a lot of things. But one of the things that happens is you begin to move into your heart, not into your mind, into your heart. And as you begin to get closer to your heart, these feelings of well-being begin to just be available. They just happen. And quite often they're just expressed in tears or in sense of joy, or a sense of yawning is another way of letting go of a lot of the energetics that's simply not you. And so the body will sit and yawn for 10 minutes sometimes. I mean, just Roxanne will tell you about yawning. And so it's just one of these things that happens. And when you get all done, there's an alertness that's generally there that wasn't there before. Congratulations. Happy yawning.
Jim, this one is from Sally, who's also in level 2, not the one that just started, but a previous one. Recently, that leak from the Supreme Court came to light, and my immediate reaction was livid. I struggled with this, but my 8th ray group, which you might want to explain, Jim, helped me see that I was not in present time, and my backpack released stuff. From this, I wonder if depression might actually be suppression. Do you have thoughts about this?
Oh, yes, absolutely. I mean, that backpack is something happens, I get embarrassed, and I don't want to go by those people anymore because I'm too embarrassed. And then it sits there as an uncomfortableness, but you don't know what to do with it. You can't get rid of it. So, what we do energetically is we just put it in a backpack and say, don't bother me, just go away. But you never clear the energy away. Remember, I said thoughts don't just go away. So you take that thought and that emotion and you put it in the backpack into denial, but it doesn't go away. And so the mechanics of some of that energy, and now what you're starting to find is that energy is starting to release itself.
This one, Jim, is from Michelle, who just started level 3. How does El Shaddai connect in this alignment?
Oh, in a very big way. El Shaddai is a really old reference, goes back into the Jewish and even before those lineages, where the energy brought forth. El Shaddai is an aspect of the Holy Spirit, and El Shaddai is a sound template. And so when you start to begin to play in what are the rays of creation, one of the rays is the 9th ray, and the 9th ray is all about sound and sound vibrations and sound currents. And so the El Shaddai has a tremendous potency of bringing things into balance and clearing things from your space. And coupled with the 8th ray, which is another part of how do you clear things out of your space, that El Shaddai is very dynamic and very alive energy. And when you simply begin to tone it or apply it as instructed, that becomes an energy in the body that can be very quiet and it can be very exciting in the body. But it's an application in this case to begin to shift the energies that's in front of you. The El Shaddai is something that's also right now very engaged in clearing this thought realm from the Earth's emotional body. So potent energy.
Here is Mark, who is a new listener. How do you see Mercury in retrograde affecting human lives?
You know, personally, I don't give a lot of attention to Mercury in retrograde. I know others do, and I'm aware. I'm going to say this from my point of view. I watch people believe something is or believe something is not, and you're correct. And so there is a energetic configuration of these planets when they go into retrograde. There is an energetic from Mercury in retrograde. It's not a denial on my part. It's just simply I choose to be in alignment with it and then don't choose to push against it. And so how it's playing out on the Earth is just one of those configurations in allowing the whole Earth to adjust right now.
Here's a question from Sante in level 2. What is the difference between the soul and the higher self, or are they the same?
The pure answer is yes, they're the same. The practical answer is you are a creation of the soul. You're one of 12 soul extensions. Soul has lots of ideas. It wants to experience itself, but you are one of those intended experiences. And you are made up of that physical body and you sitting right here asking the question. There are other aspects of you also the higher self is one of those aspects. And the higher self plays a very big role in your reality, but oddly enough, the higher self plays almost no role in your third dimensional experience as you've lived your life. It simply will not come down to you and grovel in your, F in chemistry or your bad sex life or your not getting a good job or poor me or my limitations. I'm a victim. Higher self just sits there and watches you. It will not engage with you. Now, there are people on the planet that are really in lots of trouble. And when they say, I need help, and it's a genuine, I need help, the higher self just reaches down and helps. But it will not in your third dimensional game because you're the creator being and you have full authority over creating your life as your life is being experienced. You're in charge. Nobody else is creating your life. You're creating your life. And we can talk about that if anybody has that question, because that's a big question too. When you start to genuinely take charge of yourself, I need to really make this shift, and it's clearly aligned, you'll find that shift happens. But the higher self plays an enormous role in this spiritual shift. And the people playing in Mastering Alchemy, as you start to recognize, wait, a lot of this personality that I have, this baggage I have, isn't even mine, and you begin to clear it out of your space with all the tools that you play with in level 2, you start to find that ability to get quieter and quieter and then align with the higher self in a place where you and the higher self start to run this life, that this body that you're in, the etheric body that you have access to. You begin to make some pretty major shifts. And the shifts are you watch something that's uncomfortable and you recognize, I see it, and you're able to decide how do you wish to engage with what's in front of me in this moment on your terms, not from anger or rage or resentment or victim or running away. You simply are able to, in pretty much a very neutral space, what are my choices here to create, in my words, 1 and 1 is 3. How do I take this circumstance to the higher road? And that is right there in how the higher self and you begin to navigate the world, stepping out of 3D and very much into a state of commanding your presence with a smile. That's what whole Mastering Alchemy is about. How do you get there?
Jim, here's a funny question from Valerie in level 2. I'm wondering how you choose the topics of these master classes. They always happen in perfect synchronicity with where I am. Is it because there is something on a larger scale that makes you decide these topics?
Yes, I'm a very deep being that has great insight into. No, Roxanne tells me the next webinar is due. I need to put it in the newsletter. What's the title?
And that's
So
about 6 weeks ahead of.
yeah. So it's a very spiritual event. And you're correct. Isn't it amazing that they seem to be right where they need to be? So I'm always fascinated by it. And at the same time, one of the things that you begin to do as you start to play with these tools and know yourself is how do I look at a topic from multiple reference points? Meaning, like if you are sitting in your chair and you rotate it 90 degrees, there's a whole different wall than was in front of you a minute ago. The question is, if I look at something and I always do what I've always done, I'm going to always get what I've always got. Can I move to a different point of reference and talk about it? So in a way, it almost doesn't matter what the topic title is. There's in present time, an hour before we have the class, it's like, okay, how do I use this to come to this place where people can comfortably begin to recognize themselves and let go of some of the energies that they hold on to that they're not aware of. And so it's looking at this from a different reference point. But if you think about that you have that skill set, you all have that ability, but it comes from being quiet, present, and aware, and then observing how to choose an action. You can't do that when you're in past and future and worry and concern and I don't know what's going on and I'm angry and I'm depressed. There's no center point to observe the choice of the moment that's now presenting itself to you. Again, I'm going to say this is the whole focus of mastering alchemy. Tools, skills, enhanced abilities to love myself and then be able to choose the life I wish to live, as well as being able to create a vibrational field of light that others will notice and begin to adjust where they are to a higher, faster vibration that brings them joy. That's mastering alchemy. That's what the whole scripting of mastering alchemy is, as Metatron and the other archangelics that you get to play with in this work lay out that whole path. So it's always fun, but it's Roxanne's fault.
I will take that, Paul. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Here is a question from Valerie. To what degree are the elementals helping to release these energies?
100%. The elementals will not engage with you from the standpoint of fixing you. That's not their job. Their job, their primary job, when they were created, was to reflect the light of the Christ consciousness back to you so that you can be that light reflecting back to the Creator what the Creator is. That's the task of the elementals, to not let you forget that Christed consciousness that you are. Now, for those of you who aren't mastering alchemy familiar with that term, that's not about a man, it's not about a religion, it's about an aspect of source, aspect of creator that is known as Christ consciousness, configuration of how creation occurs. It has that label on it, but it's not a religion or about Yeshua. Although Yeshua gives you lots of lectures and lots of direction, which is always interesting in how to play with all of this. Hope that answered the question.
I think it did. Here is a question from Melinda. Because we're willing to be the way showers, are we in some sense volunteering to get hit with more of the waves of darkness that are leaving?
It's an interesting question. The better referencing is you pushed your way to the front line. You pushed everybody else out of the way, and you said right to the face of the Creator, send me, I can do this job. That's who you are. And the Creator smiled, and the Creator even giggled and said, okay, no problem. Let me give you a couple of clues of what's going to happen. Is you're going to go down there and you're going to forget who I am, and you're going to forget who you are, and you're going to wallow around in this darkness with the intention of trying to find your way back. And you went, hot damn, that's really great. How deep into that darkness can I go? And the Creator said, knock yourself out. And we dove off that cliff and wound up here and went, holy gee, what did I just do? How did this happen? And we've been in that space forever. But we're coming out of that space. And you're realizing, I'll say this, if you're on this call, some will have a hard time hearing this. You're big. You're significant. You're important. You're not an accident being here. You're here right on time. This call is right on time. Your awareness of yourself is waking up. I say that very respectfully and correctly. You are beginning to recognize yourself. And right on time. What will happen in the coming days? There will be lots of transition and disruption on the planet because everybody on the planet is going home. They're not all going home on the same bus at the same time, but everybody's going home. Beings like all of you, you can't be on this call if you didn't have some real clarity about becoming aware of who you are. We just do what we do here. We don't really try to convince you, oh no, you need to take Mastering Alchemy. You need to buy this program. No, that's not how it works. If this vibrates or feels right to you, there it is. If it's not, enjoy what you just got and come back again another day if you choose. That's the whole focus. It's all about you really waking up to and stepping into becoming who you are. And who you are is an aspect of love that's happy.
Jim, this one is from Gary, who's in level 1 in North Carolina. I've been depressed on and off all of my life. As a child, it was about the abuse of animals. Now I can't really connect it to anything. I'm generally a happy guy these days, except when this energy pours over me. Are you saying this is someone else's depression, not mine? It sure is in my body.
Yeah, it's in your body. It may be yours from the standpoint of, let's just take your example of, I got depressed about animals. Why did you get depressed about animals, or why so many of us get depressed about animals being abused? Because we're so naturally engaged with them, and all of a sudden we begin to move into the mom, dad, teacher, minister, I got to be a physical body and I got to grow up life, and the animals are still being abused. And so that's depressing to a young person that's not engaged in 3D yet. Watching the world do things to others is very uncomfortable. And sometimes it gets so comfortable, you just have to consciously step out of it, put it in the backpack. And so maybe what's coming out of your backpack is this inhumanity of man to human and animals, for example. And so that may be yours, but it's coming out, it's leaving. So, how do I adjust my position to start to recognize that it's leaving, or that even considering an outrageous concept? Look, I'm depressed. So how could this be somebody else's energy? It's in my space. I get that really clear. But what happens is, have you ever walked into a room, for example, and two people had been fighting, or there's a really tense environment going on, and all of a sudden it's like, whoa, I'm going to step out of here. This is too intense. Well, what you were feeling was their energy hitting your space. And so there's a lot of energy that hits our space, and it really sometimes knocks us out. Have you ever been yelled at and all of a sudden you just get knocked out of the body, and then you come back? Well, what happens is you don't come back to where you were, because there's that person's energy that was yelling at you. And because we don't have tools or the ability to recognize, wait, this isn't mine. Here, I'm going to create a rose, which is one of the simple tools of level 1, and I'm going to collect this up and I'm going to move it out of my space. The interesting thing is, these tools are never taught to us. But once you begin to realize, you mean I can do this and this changes? The answer is, give it a try and see what happens. And many of the people in Mastering Alchemy that are even on this call are going to say, it works. I just changed how I looked at something and I agreed with it, and I was able to let this go. A lot of this depression or anxiety, let's just call it emotion that's uncomfortable, is coming out of the earth. It's coming out of that thought realm. It's coming out of people who are letting go of energies that they're theirs, but there's no management of it. It's just everywhere. So I'll go back and say, in level 1, how do I put a rose at the edge of my aura and begin to understand how this works? From the rose at the edge of my aura to my heart is me, and everything on the other side of it is Shakespeare's theater to entertain me or not. By being able to intentionally make a delineation between their energy and yours is an enormous value added to your reality. Recognizing that's not me. That feeling I'm feeling right now, that uncomfortableness, I just walked into a room and somebody was angry and now I'm angry. It's not my energy. Removing it is not complicated. Recognizing it and changing the feeling is actually relatively simple, similar to what we just did in the last hour.
Jim, this one is from Ken, who is a new listener. Can you explain a little bit about what you mean when you say everyone is going home? Does that mean the human race is done, complete?
No, it means, for example, I said third dimension, walking around space. The fifth dimension is exactly the same walking around space, the same tree, the same car, the same house, the same chair you're sitting in. Fifth dimension exists right there also. The difference in third dimension is the emotions, and then how they are configured with thoughts, and then how they're acted on. I hate you, and then I go and I shoot you. Well, that's a third dimensional set of expressions, emotions and thoughts and action from an out of balance place. That's pretty third dimension. In fifth dimension, and we just define it in really simple, well-being, happy, appreciation, gratitude, respect, dignity, laughter, kindness, So if I said, would you like to live in that space? And would you like to be able to just be conscious and manage yourself in that space? And in that fifth dimensional space, there is no war, there is no anger, rage, resentment. That's the baggage that got left behind. So now you're living in the same house chair sitting in, and you're happy. You're respectful. You're simply allowing others to be who they are. That's a very different configuration of consciousness than the normal third dimensional consciousness of fear and reaction. But there's a transition between here and there, and you can't take that baggage with you. And so we're all in that transition right now. Everybody will wind up there at some point, well-being. And right now, there's a lot, those of you playing in the park bench are all about creating a new realm of consciousness, fifth dimension, and beginning to create a level of brightness to this choice. I would rather live in well-being than in war or in poverty or in fear. And all of a sudden you become conscious versus being unconscious like we are walking around in third dimension. As that happens, you're going to find yourself in that fifth dimensional space. But everybody's not going at the same time. And it is not about this planet only. There are universes that are caught up in this third dimensional game of fear, domination, imposition. A whole nother story for another day, but it's not just this planet. And what you're doing here is affecting all those beings as well as yourself and the humans you're playing with here, mastering alchemy.
Jim, this one is from Wanda, and Wanda read the Course in Mastering Alchemy book and is in Park Bench. I don't remember hearing the word consistent referenced for a word to build on for building our new structures. Can consistent be one of the words anchored in, as I find that that is my biggest issue? I don't do anything consistently. I do something 3, 5, 10 days and then stop to have to start again later.
Yes, consistency is something you can build into your reality. So the first question you ask is, why am I not consistent? Who in my reality just didn't finish things or didn't give power to this? And a lot of times that question becomes mom or dad. This is how they lived. So I, as a little kid, said, I'm going to match mom or dad. I'm going to be just like them. And you take on those patterns and those beliefs and those habits, and here it is. So it's not so much about changing it in the fifth dimension, the opportunity to recognize, wait, this isn't even me. This is just a set of habits that I picked up and I've forgotten where I got them, and I just repeat them often. Would you like to change that? And so beginning to look at, in a real simple way, looking at consistency and asking the question, what keeps me from being consistent? And then there's a whole bunch of tools. You've got references to those tools in the Mastering Alchemy Course in Mastering Alchemy book, but the course book in the level 1 is not the same thing. But it's really about, how do I just simply recognize this is not what I want to do. I'm going to clean this pattern out of my space. Fourth, fifth, sixth ray, eighth ray, for those of you who play in that space in Mastering Alchemy, and just remove it from your space and begin to create the pattern you want to create. That's not a fifth dimensional wait to have it happen. You can do that right now.
Jim, I have one comment and one question, and that will be our last because it's almost 90 minutes. So the comment is from Lori Jean. I'm having a wonderful progress with park bench tools, especially shattering and transmuting beliefs, habits, patterns, and expectations. Then rose tool and filling with golden light. Also magnetism, love it. Actually, I have two questions. One just popped up. This one is from Maggie in level 2. I've been a really good plan-aheader. Since level 2, I've become more allowing and realize I've been missing the magic because of what I call my perfect pictures. The stress is less. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. See, perfect pictures are something that's very real, and I have to do it right. I have to fit in, and I have to make sure mom, dad are happy with me, or teacher, or minister, or whomever. And so I have to do it right. I have to get A's in school because that's what they told me. And what happens with perfect pictures, there was a woman who had her house done, And she was really clear about all the things she wanted. And she went into one room and she had wanted a band of light. I'm going to make it up. I don't remember, like a strip of color paint right at the ceiling and the top of the walls. And it was to be about 2 inches in length and width. And she went into the room and the house was immaculate. It was perfect, except they made it 1.5 inches. And she was absolutely distraught. It was like, this is a failure. This house is just not going to work. And it was all because of a 1/2 inch line in a strip of paint. She was completely wrecked. She was upset. I just spent all this money. This house is destroyed. She was completely congruent with her belief that she had failed and it was not perfect. I mean, that's pretty extreme, but people get into perfect pictures and they get caught up in them and then they can't have their creation because something is just off. You miss your day in perfect pictures. You sit in expectation and worry about it's got to be this way. You miss your day, you miss your week, you miss your life quite often in perfect pictures. So recognizing, like that woman could have said, wow, this house is spectacular. And can we go back and add another 1/2 inch of paint? That was all that was necessary. But she went into total depression about it's all wrecked. It didn't work. It's a failure. Extreme, but maybe not, because lots of people live in perfect pictures and around needs. And when you really get into looking at it, most of those perfect pictures aren't even yours. You're doing it to please somebody else. And when you really get into it, you start to recognize I've been living somebody else's life, not my own. So perfect pictures can be challenging.
Jim, here's our last question. This one is from Nadia. Where is home? The universe is vast. I feel I'm lost and have been mixed up with so many, quote, homes with this bag on my head journey.
It's really an easy answer, really easy answer. So there's something that's referred to in one of the sessions right at the time where the huge electron atomic accelerator was being finished or was being worked on. This is a 20-mile wide circle that's in France, crosses the border into Switzerland. It's called CERN. A lot of atomic research done there. And they had just announced that they had found the God particle. They had found God. Right at the center of the atom, they had found God. And so they called it the God particle. And right when that was happening, we were doing a piece of work. And so Zatkael teaching the class, and he said, there are 8 God particles. We're going to present to you 4. And the first one is spread over a couple of sessions, this work, to get into the energy. But the first one is light. And the second one is love. But the answer to your question is the third one, the third God particle. Home is your purpose is to reflect the light of the Creator back to the Creator, showing the Creator who the Creator is in your physicalness. In that space, that alignment with joy and happy and smile and laughter and gosh, this is a great day. And wow, isn't that a beautiful thing? And it's such a lovely morning. I feel really good. You're at home. Now you can magnetize, create that, expand that into more aspects of joy and a tremendous beauty. Those of you playing in park bench are beginning to touch that over and over. But home is right here. Home is right in the heart. Home is the space that gets really quiet into that aspect of loving yourself, and at such a level that it reflects back to the Creator the love and the light that the Creator is. That's home. It has nothing to do with a physical body. In fact, a lot of times you can get into that space and you're so conscious in this space. Yes, you have a physical body, but it's not what it's about at all. That's home. Now, does home get reflected in different layers of dimensions and densities and experiences and fractals of light presentation and universes and consciousness? Absolutely. Home is everywhere. It's this alignment that allows you and the Creator to be one. It's you reflecting back to the Creator what the Creator is. It's you and the Creator being one in this new thought that you just thought up, a brand new thought, never thought before. And you say to the Creator, what about this? And the Creator smiles. That's home. And that's a great place to come to a conclusion.
It is.
One of the things I think I want to say is, for those of you who are playing in Mastering Alchemy and used to all kinds of conversations in this space, I'm going to bring this lecture, this called free lecture, back to some really fundamentals, like the space we just played in. Tools, in order to bring those of you who aren't playing in Mastering Alchemy into an awareness of opportunity. Whether you play in Mastering Alchemy or not, that's a choice that you can all make. But I want to make it clear to everybody in Mastering Alchemy, the advanced webinar is for you. This webinar is for you also, but it's going to be more at this fundamental level going forward, because there are so many people that are very much waking up and saying, how do I get home? How do I get happy? How do I get this depression out of my space? Over the next 6 months, all are welcome to play here, but this is a space where we're going to start to play with some real fundamental choices in many of the tools of Mastering Alchemy. So with that said, please come and play again next month. And if you have questions, please always ask. We'll be happy to be assistance. So for now, go away. I appreciate you. Many blessings.